I made a client cry this week. That's right. They weren't tears of pain, though. They were tears of joy. I helped this young couple realize that they can actually buy a home and stay within a budget, not be house poor, using their VA home loan benefit. It was a pretty special evening. When I was talking to them, they were actually the daughter of a close friend of mine, and he wanted me to provide some help to basically education to his daughter and her husband on the home buying process and whether or not they could even buy a home. They're not even going to do the loan with me because it's a new build and they're going to get some great incentives, but totally made my day. Actually, when I got off the phone with her, she was crying. When I got off the phone with her, I called her dad. I'm like, hey, brother, I made your daughter cry. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I explained it to him. He was like, dude, you're the best. And I tell you what, that right there, that's enough fuel to take me through the month, through the rest of this next quarter here. That's why I do what I do. Now let's get into the housing market update. So much to talk about. Let's talk about the big three first, all right? Prices are steady, and that is good news in this environment. Inventory is up, and rates are pretty sideways. I don't want to say they're better, they're sideways. They're not great, but they're still pretty good relative to really the last 3 years. Let's get into the headline news. First, we'll talk about Iran, what the ceasefire means. We're going to talk about what's the floor for interest rates. Now, I know we're under 6% for VA, but 6% for conventional has been a rarity over the last 4 years. And we'll get into that, the specifics of why I think this is a super important one. And there's a lot of lessons learned in that. We're going to talk about home prices. We got the HBR, the Honolulu Board of Realtors home price, basically our home market index for the month of March. Pretty good numbers overall. PCE, first inflation report of the week was flat. It was as expected, but there's a but to that. We're going to talk about checking your credit before you buy and FAQ Friday, and then VA rates. We'll go into that a little bit, but not too much. All right. I would say we are in a very fragile ceasefire right now with Iran. It's been brokered through Pakistan. JD Vance is en route, if not already. I think they're speaking tomorrow with Iranian government leaders. But this is a very fragile agreement. There's a lot of different things going on. One, there's this promise that we want, Iran has made that they will open the strait, but they haven't really opened the strait. I think there were maybe 12 boats that went through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday, but that's not what we need. That doesn't even put a dent in the market needs for fuel going in and out of, mostly out of the Persian Gulf. And oil prices, they're really, sticking around that 100. They've been popping up to 110, even a little more than that. That's what we're looking at. And these higher fuel prices, higher energy prices, they are going to start showing up in the inflation reports from here on out. The inflation report we got this week so far on Thursday was for February, so it didn't take into consideration what was going on in Iran. The report that we receive on Friday, so today when most people are watching, that one will have the impact of Iran war in it, and the expectation really is that we're going to see almost a 1 point increase in inflation, and including core inflation, which strips out energy and food, because really energy, it impacts everything else. It impacts travel. Price of gas goes up. It impacts travel. It impacts really the price to ship goods. So really expect to see a higher number. And again, this ceasefire is very fragile, and the markets, whether it's the stock market or the bond market, they are reacting really quickly to any amount of news, fake or real, that comes out. And that's the problem. Half the time we don't even know if the news is real or if it's not. There's so much AI bot stuff, just so much fake news being put out. It's hard to know what is right and what is wrong. AI is great, but AI is also causing some perturbations in the market because, again, hard to tell what's real and what's not. Again, we talked about the little to no movement of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, of shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. That's going to continue to play. It really impact interest rates. Israel deciding to bomb whoever the fuck they want. Obviously, that is kind of that's just throwing some sparks into the fire. Sparks and fuel that create a big explosion. That's kind of what we're seeing. And then I'd say the last thing, and we don't control this, but the mainstream media, they really want the U.S. and in particular, the mainstream media wants President Trump to fail. And right or wrong, that's what you see right now. It's definitely wrong. And the negative headlines, these negative headlines that are being put out, they are emboldening Iran. They're going to embolden China. They embolden Russia, all right, to string this along, because the more pain they can inflict on President Trump and therefore the United States, but mostly President Trump, then the more pain they're going to cause locally, domestically, for President Trump as he continues through in his presidency. So, some of the things that he's saying, absolutely not popular, but certainly the negative news, and I see it all the time, for every situation, it seems, even when it's good, is really going to start just having a really negative impact on our ability to win and end this war. And JD Vance, I think he's a great statesman. He's got his work cut out for him, people out there. While he's doing negotiating, there's no telling what's happening back home on the home front. So just a lot going on here. We are super headline driven with regards to the Strait of Hormuz, with Iran, and then obviously with interest rates, stock market, and whatnot. So let's go from the global view to Oahu view as we talk about the Honolulu housing market. Median sales price for single-family homes dropped in March from $1.205 million to $1.190 million. It's not that much. It's actually still really good, near all-time highs. And condos are at $510,000, so slightly up from the month of February. So good month overall in March. We'll take a look at some of the monthly stats. March was a solid month for closing. 260 for single-family homes, 351 for condos, so 20%, over a 20% increase for condos. That's great news. Median sales price steady, again flat but steady. Days on market, kind of a big difference though. You see, we went up from 17 to 21 days for single-family homes. So homes are staying on the market a lot longer, but a big drop for condos from 56 down to 43 days. So really a big change. That's not normally like that. You don't normally see a big, a drop off like that from condos. But hey, there are a lot of condos on the market right now, and people were, liquored up this first quarter with buying real estate. The opportunity is there. And you got new listings up, and that's pretty normal. You usually have February. We'll take a look at that. But new listings were up. And again, signaling this beginning of the spring season. Months of supply was up a little bit for condos, not much, from 6.2 to 6.3. And then again, from a flat for single family, I'm staying at 2.8 months of inventory. So again, not a lot of single family home inventory on the island. Let's take a look at new listings. We had a nice rebound in new listings for March, and that's good to see, and likely continue to see that because people have to start selling homes. I saw this one. Somebody mentioned, I don't know how true it is, but I'm going to mention it. Again, not saying whether it's true or not, but 1 out of every 4 home sellers is in a potential short sale situation. I think that might be a little high, but I do know it's happening. There's a lot of reasons why. If you haven't watched my podcast, actually one of my next podcasts, I'm talking to a solar expert. He's talking about how the solar panel leases right now are absolutely killing some of these homeowners who are trying to sell their home, and they cannot. All right, that solar lease is like a big lead ball around their neck, and they're being thrown in the water and they're starting to drown. Let's take a look at active inventory. We inch closer again to 3,000. We're at 2,985 homes and condos on the market. I think we'll get to 3,000 next month. I really do. And look at that condo inventory. That condo inventory is near all-time highs. And I think we'll get there because you're going to see, again, I think this is going to be a very robust spring season thanks to really low interest rates. And I know they're going up a little bit, but they're still lower than they typically have been. So really expect to see these numbers as more people start getting into the market trying to take advantage of this lower rate environment. Let's look at closed sales. 611 closed sales in March. It shows that the spring rebound is in effect. You can see that nice little curve up. Single-family home sales are up 10.9% for the first quarter over last first quarter. So that's good. And then condo sales, though, down just a little bit, 3.9% first quarter this year to first quarter 2025. Single-family home sales between 500,000 and a million rose 31% year over year. Condo sales showing the biggest jump, though, from 700,000 to 799,000, a 62% increase year over year in condo home sales between 700 and 800,000. Let me tell you what, for many people, I've been talking to several of my clients who are looking at first-time home buyers, and that is the sweet spot right now. If you can get in, that's great. And you know, I'll tell you that I had this one client. He sold maybe a year and a half ago. It's a single-family home, sold for $852,000. Right, that same home, different home, but same neighborhood, it's now selling for $770,000. So you're an $80,000, drop in a matter of a year. A large part due to HOA dues going up. But I will tell you this: if the home price got there before, it'll get there again. Again, you don't sell your stocks when they drop; you sell them when they're at their height. Like this client did, a year and a half ago. The time to get in to buy that home is now, because hey, that value will come back over time. It's just, you got to hold it. So really, closed sales, very strong start to 2026. We will see what April and May look like based on what we're having to deal with right now in Iran. Median sales price, all right, again, just off the all-time high of 1.205 million. We're at 1.19 million for single-family homes, but you can see, man, that ceiling, that 1.2 ceiling, it's gonna get broken this year. I do have a feeling it will get broken. Condos are tracking in the 500 to 510,000 range. Will we get up to 520, 530, maybe 550? I think that would be kind of that next level. Condo sales, condo median sales price doesn't go up nearly as much, but it does go up. It does go up, but not nearly as much as single family homes. And it remains to be seen if the single family home climb has started. Let's talk about the PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditure Report that came out on Wednesday. Again, this is for February inflation, and inflation was as expected, flat. Actually, core dropped a tad from 3.1 to 3%. So that was good news. But again, that did not take into account the increase in fuel prices based on the conflict in Iran. This is a report received with an asterisk, and that's kind of what we're looking at there. Really, this one came in at estimates. Not a lot to talk about here. Really, the bigger one is the CPI that's coming out on Friday. Again, expectation is we're going to jump to like 3.4% from 2.8 to 3.4 on the core, which is no bueno. But you know what? If it comes in maybe a little lower than those expectations, well, that's a good thing too. But I wouldn't hedge my bets on that one. Hey, what's the floor on mortgage rates? Over the last 4 years, we've seen the average rate, conventional, I'm speaking conventional, not VA. If you think we're talking VA, they're about half a point less, but the average interest rate for conventional has been about 6.77%. And you know what? We've gotten down to 6%, right around 6% multiple times over the course of the last 4 years. But you know what? We've never stayed below. We even got down below 6% at the beginning of this year a couple times. But you know what? Each time, all right, we've bounced off that floor. And let's take a look at the data. What does the data show? Well, in 2022, we saw interest rates surge from around 3% up to 6% as we had a huge inflation shock. Many people remember that. I remember that specifically. And then we had 2023, the Fed started to tighten the policy, and interest rates peaked from about 7.5 to 8%. 2024, we saw first meaningful drops back toward the mid to high 6% range. We thought, all right, 2025 is going to be that year. Well, it certainly wasn't. In 2025, we hovered really right around 6.6%. 2026, though, we have had multiple dips between 6.1 and 6.3% and a really brief drop at 5.99% conventional. But every time we have gotten close to 6%, it's been temporary, and it has been triggered by specific economic shifts. Why did rates drop? Every time there's a reason. The first reason, Fed policy shift, and this has been the big lever for interest rates. When there are rate cuts or even pause signals, that causes mortgage rates to drop. Example, 2024 to 2026, as the Fed was lowering the Fed funds rate, rates would drift down towards that 6%, that 6% number. But borrowers, they don't need low rates. They need momentum turning in their favor. All right, and then you got inflation cooling. Inflation peaked about 9% in 2022, all right, and then it started to slow. And as inflation slowed, bond yields drops and mortgage rates actually fall. Mortgage rates also dropped. And really, rates don't drop. A lot of people think, hey, rates are dropping, homes are cheaper. No, when rates drop, they drop because inflation gets tamed and those home prices start to go back up again. And every time we see rates come down, you see a mass kind of exodus to buy homes. And that's what we've seen as inflation has cooled. But again, we're starting to see that number go up. When the bond market moves, that is pretty powerful. Mortgage rates track along with the 10-year treasury. And when investors get nervous, i.e. stocks fall and uncertainty in the market arises, the money flows into bonds and interest rates start to fall. An example of that was in early 2026. We saw rates dip below 6%, and that was tied to market volatility and bond demand spike. All right, and that's what we saw at the beginning of 2026. And the other big factor that we've seen with mortgage rates really is global uncertainty. You got wars, you got economic scares, you got recessions. We have a flight to safety, and which pushes rates down, but only temporarily, not structurally. And really, these drops, every one of these drops has been short-lived. You can see on that chart a lot of really short term, and the people who are ready to buy were able to get in. The people who were like, oh, now I want to get ready to buy, well, guess what? I've seen rates turn in a day. I've seen rates turn in less than a day. You gotta be ready. And what we're seeing here is that over 4 years, 6% shows up as a floor touch, not a resting place. Drops happen when the Fed signals easing, when inflation cools, and when the markets panic. But then they bounce back because inflation proves to be sticky, economy remains resilient, and the Fed doesn't fully pivot. And that's exactly what we've seen. And here's the blind spot that most buyers have. They are thinking, I will wait until rates are lower. But the data shows that lower is very brief. And when they are lower, the competition jumps. So what's the call to action here? Buyers are waiting for a rate environment, all right, that no longer structurally exists. I get it. Everybody remembers that 3% that we saw back in 2022 and 2021, but that 3% was a once in a generation anomaly. And the historical averages are right around 6%. The last 4 years is 6.77%. So the current cycle that we're seeing is a return to near 6%. There is no guarantee that rates go lower. And 6% may be the new floor and not the ceiling. So what is your call to action? Step one. All right, you got to buy when the payment works. All right. And then step two is you refinance, all right, when the market gives you the next dip. I have clients who are in the 6s and they refinance into the low 5s and they're saving anywhere from $300 to $800 a month. All right. But they got the home. And guess what? That home is appreciating. They're building equity in that home. But you can't build equity in a home you don't own. All right. Ultimately, you're going to pay. all right, for that when you go buy that home later. And step 3 is, again, you're building equity while others are waiting. Super important. Step 1, buy when the payment works. Step 2, refinance when that opportunity arises. And step 3 is you build equity while other people are paying rent. Here's the bottom line. If 6% only shows up once or twice a year, do you want to compete with all the onrushers to buy? Or do you want to just refinance because you bought a while ago? This is a story that I've been hearing for the last couple of years, really the last 4 years. And this is why you shouldn't wait for rates to drop if you're ready to buy a home. Number 1, rising prices. When rates drop, home prices go up. Number 2, competition goes up. Every 1% drop in interest rates brings 5 million more buyers into the market. I tell you what, nobody wants to go back to those COVID days where you had a line of people going to open houses down a street. Remember, you could only have like 2 families or maybe 3 families in the home. Well, guess what? We ain't going back to that. But some friends of mine, they are listing the home in Mililani. Man, they had nonstop people going through that house. That house is definitely in escrow right now. And now it's on the market for less than a week. All right, the house priced right. Rates come down, you got more competition. And then, the waiting, well, again, by waiting, you're losing the opportunity to build equity. Every mortgage payment you make, you're building equity in your home. And the longer you own the home, the more appreciation you're going to have. But if you were sitting on the sidelines for the last 3 or 4 years and you could have gotten in when, hey, rates were maybe 6.5%, and you could have got in, then refinanced, and guess what? When the wave of home price appreciation comes in, when home prices start to go up again, you're going to ride that wave instead of getting slammed by that wave because now you're just competing. It reminds me of that one picture. Get a picture of a whole bunch of people swimming into a wave and just getting slammed. Because that's kind of what that looks like. Those are the renters who didn't get ahead. But you know what? The person who got ahead, that's that surfer who made it over the wave. All right, and is getting ready and is just enjoying, just kind of sitting back and watching the mess behind him because he got in the market really before it got crazy. So, in any case, that's kind of why you shouldn't wait for rates to drop. I really do. I think this is a great slide. This is what happens when you wait. All right, rising prices, more competition, and lost appreciation. Time is money, friends. Time is money. FAQ Friday, how can I improve my credit score before buying a home? Well, the biggest thing is you start early. You got to know what your credit is. And believe me, a lot of people have no idea. I helped a guy a couple years ago. I remember summer of 2023. I helped him buy, and he didn't think that he could buy a home. He said, you know what, I think my credit score is kind of low. I think my income, I'm going to get a pay raise in November. We're talking like in June. And I'm like, hey, let's just take a look here. And we pulled his credit, and his credit actually was really good. And instead of waiting until November to buy, he got in June, closed by August, and he owned a home, and he didn't think he could do it. But the reason he knew he could do it is because he looked at his credit report. The easiest way to improve your credit is to make your payments on time, right? You need to get your revolving credit down below 30% ideally, but maybe you're at 80%. It's too tough. Just get it down. Make your payments on time. That is really the biggest thing. Don't open more credit. Don't pay off credit with other credit. Pay your bills on time. Don't close accounts. You might have a credit card that you haven't used for years. And you're like, I'm just going to clean up my credit by closing these old accounts. Don't do that. Don't do that, because when you close an old credit card, that reduces your revolving credit capability. So any credit you have used, it actually that revolving credit usage goes up because you lose that whatever that amount was. So don't close credit cards. I would say the biggest thing if you're trying to improve your credit is check your credit now. You can pull your credit report for free. You can go to annualcreditreport.com, pull one of the bureaus. You get one pull a year from each of the bureaus. So really 3, do it once a quarter just to see where you're at. And come up with a plan. I've done that multiple times in my life where I was up to my eyeballs in credit card debt, and I would bring myself down. It was discipline. It took discipline, but it also took a plan. And every month, my goal was to pay down that one credit card, pay the minimums on the rest, pay down the one credit card, then move it to the next one. That debt snowball. But yeah, I would say that's really what you want to do. Do it early. Don't wait until the last minute, because you might find a surprise that doesn't let you buy at all. Let's take a look at VA rates. All right, we are still below 6%, but for how long? I like it under 6%. That's very good. All right, how long will we stay below 6% though? We're at 5.93. We got an inflation report coming out tomorrow. I expect to see those rates go up. I'm not happy about that, but that's just the numbers, and that's what we got to play with. So any negotiation, misinformation will cause rates to go up. You know what? At the end of the day, we got to get oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. We got to end this conflict in Iran. It's not going to be easy. That is an absolute hornet's nest. It has been a hornet's nest for the last 47 years, and hopefully we get some closure on that over the course of the next couple weeks, because we only have 2 weeks of this ceasefire. All right, have a great weekend. Aloha.